Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Rheum To Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. I'm so excited today to have Gittel, and she's going to be the first person to be in the 5 Timers Club on the Arthritis Life podcast. This is your 5th time. Welcome back.
How exciting. Thank you for having me.
Yay. Thank you so much for coming again. And it's wild to think that your first appearance was on episode 36 of the podcast in 2021. And that was a poetry reading. So that was an event, a live event that we did in the thick of COVID. And then episode 63 from Overwhelmed to Confident, which was with Camille, our friend, who was in at that time called the Rheumatoid Arthritis Roadmap, I believe. It's 2022. And then 2023 did your first solo episode, What's in Your Coping Toolbox, and Overcoming Ableism and More. 172, Redefining Thriving, where we had a group discussion about the Rheum To Thrive program.
Oh, that one was great. We all got to just gush about how meaningful and impactful and powerful and everything this group has been for us. I love that episode. That's a good one.
I know. I need to listen to it again. It was so great. Well, and today we are going to be talking a lot about mindful social media use and how we find balance in that. But just to do a quick introduction for those who might not have listened to those previous episodes, where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
All right. I'm going to try to make this brief, but I make no promises. I currently live in Southern California. I live with my parents in Lake Elsinore. My 2 major diagnoses are Crohn's disease as well as ankylosing spondylitis. And then it took me a long time to realize that ankylosing spondylitis was in that umbrella of inflammatory arthritis and what is it?
Rheumatic disease.
That's the one. Rheumatic
Yeah.
disease. Yes. All of these terms, right? Like I just learned about autoinflammatory versus autoimmune and all of these terms that I'm understanding for myself, right? Knowledge is power. But yeah, so I have those 2 big ones. The one that allows me access to is the ankylosing spondylitis one. That's the one where I can relate to everyone. But we all have a lot of GI issues as well. So, Crohn's helps me relate as well. And let's see, that I've had health issues since I was like 15, but I didn't get formally diagnosed until I was 30, which I do feel is kind of common around 30 to get diagnosed for some reason. And then I am managing my diseases through biologics and DMARDs and more vocabulary that I had to learn, right? So right now I'm actually on the biosimilar for Remicade called Brenflexis, and then the DMARD methotrexate, which you helped me when I had to switch from oral to injections to the moral support and solidarity to inject myself with the methotrexate.
Yes, that's a big
transition for people, their first ever self-injection. So I applaud you because you did yours on live on Instagram Live. And that's a good example of positive social media use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using it for connection. Exactly. I'm like, for me, it was almost one of those things where I was like, I just need someone to, like, I need to be pushed into the pool, but I need someone to either be already there or holding my hand or something. I can't do this all by myself. And having you be there, someone that I felt was my guru, because you're the founder of the support group, and also because you do so many methotrexate injections on your Instagram profile and stuff, that like it felt like, why not do it with a pro? You know?
That was awesome. Yeah, yeah, no, I was very proud of you. I know you've had very many ups and downs over the years, and you're also, I've said a lot in the past about the Rheum To Thrive. I call it an educational support group program or a self-management program. It's really a hybrid program, but one of the things that's been so neat for me, looking back on like the 5-year anniversary of it this year, is that it really has been quote unquote co-created with the members, in the sense that over the years, I've taken the feedback from various members, and I want to give you now on the record credit for giving me some great ideas and iterations, especially from your background as a teacher, that you've helped me shape and mold the program over the years. And it's been really amazing to watch it grow. So thank you. Oh, sorry. Was there anything else you wanted to say about like your overall like relationship to arthritis, or how maybe some people who might have listened to your episode a few years ago might be wondering like how is your ankylosing spondylitis right now? Is it pretty low disease activity or flare?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty lucky that it's pretty low, to the point that my rheumatologist actually wanted me to go on a drug holiday a little while ago. And thanks to to the Room to Thrive, actually, that helped me like problem solve and figure out how I really felt about that. I realized I wanted to be in a more empowered place before we do that. And what I really mean by that is I'm in physical therapy and I want to be physically stronger before I start messing with the drugs and seeing what the different effects might be. But it's so far so good, knock on wood, that these medicines actually do work for me. The main fact that I feel like I have latched onto, and why it has actually caused me a little bit of hesitation to now get off the drugs, even though it took me a long time to get on the drugs, because learning that the medications help halt the progression of the disease that I have. So it was hard to wrap my mind around. Wait, so now you want me to go off of a medication that's halting the progression of my disease? Or doesn't that mean I'm taking the risk of the disease, like of either me having more fusions like I've had, or anything like that? But that's kind of like the balance with everything, right? Like we always call it the risk cost, what is it? The risk
Cost benefit analysis.
that one,
The
right?
risk benefit analysis.
And we're
yeah.
always like talking through the pros and the cons. And that's actually my favorite thing about our group, is that everyone's just, well, this is how it worked for me. This is how it happened for me. And we get to hear each other's stories, knowing that just because that's how it happened for you doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to happen for me. But it's also good to know just these are the different possibilities of things that could happen. And so that, I feel, has been extremely helpful to just feel, I'm going to use that word again, to feel empowered in my decisions, right? To feel, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it, not just because the doctor said that that's what they wanted for me, but because this is what I want for myself as well,
Mhm. I love that. Yeah. And just for people listening, it who might be going through something similar, it is possible that people who get into a state of remission on their medications, I don't think that most of the rheumatologists I've learned from don't exactly understand how or why, but sometimes people need to stay on the medications long term, because every time they try to wean down, their body immediately starts flaring up again. The other people, they're able to wean down on the medication and sustain that remission, even either on lower amounts of medication. This is commonly done with methotrexate, or on the cases of the biologics, which tend to be like kind of not have a lot of wiggle room, depending on the med. They might be able to titrate down on the dosage or frequency, or wean all the way off and sustain an unmedicated remission. And I think it's like sometimes the medication puts that disease, it quiets those cells that are going over in overdrive. But again, other times those overachieving cells just come right back out the minute you take the medicine away. So I can see how it's really up to you and your conversations between you and your doctor, but it's up for you to say what the risk benefit analysis for you. I think in the cases from the doctors, they say if you don't need to be immunosuppressed, we would want you to not take immunosuppressants because then your immune system's going to be more robust.
That
But
is exactly what my rheumatologist answered
yeah,
to me was. I was like, so what's the pro here? Because again, the detail that I had latched onto was the drugs are gonna halt the progression of my disease. So I was like, so what's the pro? He's like, for you not to be as immunosuppressed. I'm like,
yeah,
oh yeah, that would be a good pro, yes.
yeah. Well, I think this is just such a good example to patients listening that like it really is when we say it's a journey, like that it's ups and downs over the years, that's really true, right? Because when we talked to you earlier, you weren't in a state where this was even on the table. So just know if you're in the newly diagnosed stage, it's something where you're going to have to be kind of flexible over the years with these ups and downs. I laugh when I say the word flexible because it's not the easiest thing for me at times. I want to just know the answer and be able to cling to it and not have it change. But apparently that's not how life works.
Oh, I still remember one of my first therapy sessions being like, I just need to know when to quit and when to grit. Let me know. Am I fighting this? I will fight. Am I quitting? I will quit. Just let me know which one. And then I can do it. But it's yeah, that's not how life is with that.
Yeah, we get to that point with the group too, where we talk about like when do we accept and adapt to what's going on, and then when do we again try to go into our fixing problem solving mode. And I know we've talked a lot in the past about solvable problems versus perpetual, which I'm sure will come up again here too. But I did want to start going into like delving into this topic of the day, which is how to use social media mindfully, or how to use social media as a chronic illness patient in a way that's going to be maybe helpful and not harmful. Take the floor. This is your time to go on your soapbox, or share
All right, I know, right? Let me
your
just
perspectives.
get this over
Yeah, yeah.
get my bullhorn ready. But no, yeah, it actually reminds me because it's one of the things that drew me to your group, as we know, is the acronym, right? The fact the Rheum To Thrive, and teachers love acronyms so much. And so I'm gonna bring myself back to my Miss Aguilar days in the classroom, And for me, the T in Room to Thrive is tools for pain and fatigue, right? And using those tools. Well, when I used to teach, I was a seventh grade teacher. I taught reading, writing, history, and I also taught health class. And when I taught health class, I would teach the unit on drugs, ironically, or funnily enough. And I would say it's not that drugs are evil. It's that we have drug use, we have drug misuse, and we have drug abuse, right? It's like you can use it. If I have a headache, I'm going to take some Tylenol, I'm going to take some acetaminophen. That is a drug that you are taking for it to affect your body, right? You can misuse it in terms of I did the wrong dosage of this, right? And especially for us, oh my gosh, how often? Like I took the wrong pill. So, yeah, okay. And then there's like abuse of it, right? Where you're just like you're doing harm to yourself. Like this is not helpful to you whatsoever. And so using that same framing, I think about social media as a tool, right? And this tool can be used, can be misused, and can be abused just in that same way, right?
Wow. I
Yeah.
love that framing.
Yeah. So when I think about, okay, what is that tool? What are you using it for? If the first part is the use, right? Then what's the use? What is the point? What is your goal? And a lot of times, especially with social media, the goal is to connect, right? I want to connect with people. I want to know that I'm not alone in feeling this way. So I'm going to express myself, and then getting people's likes and comments and things like that let me know. Sometimes I get direct messages from people that don't feel comfortable liking and commenting, but directly message me saying, thank you so much for saying this truth like that. And I have those moments of connection with people, and those are the beautiful things that social media is for. But one person's connection is another's isolation, and sometimes social media can actually be misused or even abused in a way that ends up making you feel more isolated rather than connected. So that is also the part, because I'm like, if the goal of social media for me is to connect virtually or to have a soapbox, right? And talk about something that's important to me, then if that is the goal, then it helps me to use that tool more intentionally, right? And I mean, I'm laughing because it's like, it reminds me a little bit sometimes though of like when you go to a room and you're like, wait, what was I doing here? You go to the kitchen, the fridge, you open it, what was I gonna get, right? And you have that like almost a brain. I think that's the closest to like brain fog that maybe you can describe. Like everyone's gonna relate to and understand this moment
Yeah.
where it was here, my brain was functioning, and all of a sudden it just stopped, and now I don't remember what I was doing. But sometimes that does happen with social media for sure, right? Where you just open it, and you're like, wait, there was a reason. I was opening this up because I wanted to connect with someone, because I wanted to check out someone. Like, what was the goal between what was I doing? Not a mindless, don't go to the fridge and mindlessly, don't go to and mindlessly scroll. It's like, what is actually your intention here? And that also reminds me of, speaking of the Room to Thrive, the toolbox and all of that, and talking about when do we use our tools. Oh no, brain fog, it just hit me. There was a reason I was bringing all of that up, and right now it just slipped my mind.
Oh, maybe there's you go with the intention to use your tool, and then you're like, why am I in this room? It was like supposed to
Yes,
be connected
yeah,
to
it's like,
that, or
what was the intention behind this tool? What did I need it for? And even then, sometimes that's just a really good check-in for yourself too, where you're just like, yeah, really, what was I doing? What is my purpose right now? Is my purpose does it make sense for me to connect with people? Or is this actually a time that I just want to be by myself? Like I actually don't feel it. I don't feel like socializing on social media, right? Like that is another thing that people don't think about, the fact that we socialize on social media. Like I sent you this one thing that said, something about people criticizing you for being on social media, or that kind of thing. And it's, but my friends live here,
yeah,
right? Like,
where my friends are.
this is where my friends are. And it's true. This is what keeps me from feeling completely isolated, because going back to the whole drug holiday and being immunosuppressed on immunosuppressants, and just like the anxiety of that is very real, and that struggle is very real. It is really nice to be able to socialize with someone without having to battle anxiety, and without thinking in the back of my mind, is this the moment? Am I getting exposed? Or am I gonna regret this later because I ended up getting sick, And instead it's, no, I get to be fully present in the Zoom room. Also, really good for when I'm in a flare or anything like that, and I'm very uncomfortable. How many times have I gone to group and I am laying down, I am horizontal. Sometimes we don't even turn on the cameras because we're just like, I can't be seen, but I still want to be present. I still want to be here with everybody. And it's just such a great way to, once again, connect with people virtually, even if I was about to say something that would have betrayed my entire point.
Oh,
Say, even if it's not real. And it's, well, that is the thing that people will say, oh, social media is not real life. And for me, when I see that, when I come across that, first of all, it's a red flag, where I'm like, oh, okay, that person is probably a jerk online, because they don't see this as real life. They don't see these as real people that they are interacting with. So they are taking liberties and making it like just doing whatever, saying whatever without a filter, because they think it's not real life, So I'm like,
yeah. I so agree. I like to think back maybe from a historical perspective, like about, I do understand that the selective algorithms, and there's certain aspects of technology today that are truly so different than any other technology in the past. But let's just think about, did you know that when they first started, printing press started being able to print books, that I'm sure you probably didn't know this from being a teacher, but the teachers were furious because they felt that students would no longer, they would lose the skill of memorization because they'd be able to look at a printout and what they were reading. Or that, when telephones first existed, oh no, people are just going to be on the phone and never socialize in real life anymore. So we had these panics every time there's been a new technology. Again, I do think that there are quantitative and qualitative differences about things like AI and the algorithmic nature now. It's not just like you take a newspaper and you put it online and we all are still in the same container of information with the same small set of, curators of that information,
Yeah.
problematic as they may have been. Now it's just, I think one of the things I think is the most perilous about, if we're talking about the negatives of social media as a patient or virtual environments, is the algorithms that put you into a bubble where you're only ever hearing an echo chamber of the same potentially valid information or the same potentially invalid misinformation.
But
Virtual
you're
environment.
you're still with me because I'm like, and that's an extra point for why it's important to use social media mindfully as opposed to mindlessly, right? To be a critical thinker, especially now in the world of AI, like how many videos and things do we see that it's, oh, this is AI, this isn't real, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, I totally got tricked by the bunnies on the trampoline. There's a bunnies on trampoline video. It's AI. It's not real, right? And that's when it's okay. That's not real. Like social media is like dismissing it as that's not real life. I'm like, well then, what about me expressing my very real feelings on this thing? I'm a real person. I'm real life. But then it's like AI is taking it the step further. No, that really is not real. That's artificial. That is the whole point of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, no, I mean, somehow I figured out the bunny one, but the bunnies on the trampoline, but there's other ones where I've definitely been led astray. And that's a whole being able to the deep fakes, being able to take someone's voice and likeness, and that whole thing is just,
Terrifying.
but at the same time, one of the best things about the human species is that we adapt. We're very, very, very adaptable, and that's what we have to do. I'll say from my own experience on social media, I think one of the hardest things for me is, and I love your opinion on this, you're saying using it as a tool. I might have an intention going on to social media and how I want to use it. And then I get distracted and it's like squirrel. And unfortunately, the algorithms are so good at presenting things to me that I am going to be willing and interested in going into and clicking. Then all of a sudden, it's become a time suck. And even though I'm so mindful, I've tried different strategies, it's still been hard for me to actually implement, just being totally honest and humble here. I've had stages and booms and busts where I've been really mindful and really good about boundaries. And other times I just totally backslide in it. And I'm wondering if anyone listening is like me, if you have any tips for us or anything that if you've stumbled with that as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I think that just like with everything, one of my favorite metaphors for this actually just like with everything, there is a balance. There's a balance. Oh, here's another Miss Aguilarism that I used to say in the classroom all the time. Moderation is key. Like we tend to go one extreme to the other, and it's like actually that Goldilocks moderation is key tends to be in most cases where you want to be, right? Not too hot, not too cold, like not those extremes kind of a thing. And there are like a lot of tools that do help you with that mindful social media use. So for instance, if it's a timing thing, right? I know that there are actual like apps and settings and stuff that can strictly be like, you are only allowed whatever time you gave yourself, right? If you decided 20 minutes, if you decided an hour, whatever, and that's it. And after that, it locks you out of the app for the rest of the day and it won't let you back in until the next day. And, if that's a tool that works for you in order to get you to have mindful social media use, then cool, that works for you. But just like with most things, I don't think well, first of all, it's definitely not a one size fits all, but it's also not like a one-time solution. And then this is going to be the one thing that changes it all. And then once I'm there, it's going to be this. No, this is going to work for a while. And then, I'll fall off the wagon or it'll stop working and then I'll have to figure out another strategy. And like that for me, returning to the T of the toolbox, like that for me is the importance of having so many different tools, because then it's not just the one that you're depending on. And if that one doesn't work, oh no, now you're lost. And instead it's, well, okay, that one didn't work this time. I've also heard of the strategy of, I sent it to you. Actually, it was a picture where someone made like a whole like dollhouse for their phone.
That was so cute.
I was like, this might work for you, Cheryl. Because I was like, it's just so adorable. And like you decorate the room and everything, and then you tuck the phone in at night, or not even at night, but just whenever. You tuck it into the dollhouse and you're like, okay, I'm just not gonna use it for a little bit, whether that next little bit is to watch a movie, to spend time with my family, to take a bath, to cook something, like whatever the case may be that you don't want to be plugged in for, that you want to escape social media for a minute, escape just your phone for a minute. Whatever strategy works for you, cool. And if it doesn't work, try a new one. Like that flexibility is something that I learned from our group as well, where it's, these strategies aren't going to always work. They're not foolproof and they're not going to work forever. Just these medications aren't going to work forever. What, you got lucky and had 11 years for one of yours?
I had 6 years, but I've talked to people who've had 14, 16, 18 years. Yeah.
And I'm like, they put me on Remicade, I think at the end of 21, and they switched me to Renflexis, but it's like the same formula basically. And I'm still going strong on it, right? Like they did antibody tests and stuff like that, which again, I wouldn't have even thought of if people hadn't mentioned that, but anyway. So I forgot the point of bringing this up.
Being flexible. I actually love that connection that we're having to be flexible and pivot as things change. The strategy that works today might not work tomorrow. In the case of social media, a week or so ago, or maybe a month ago, I found this old relic. It was like my iPod. It was before I had an iPhone or even like a smartphone. And it was like 2010, maybe, or 2011. And I hadn't opened it since then. I plugged it in. Sure enough, it still turned on. And it was so interesting because I remember, it was just like a nice little fun. I would look at it on the bus or something like that on my way, to or listen to music on the way to OT school. And it had 8 apps on it. It had mail and had a couple games and it had my Kindle. And it was like, maybe like before being like, I'm failing to, and we've talked about this in the groups before saying, we talked about like organization and like staying on top of things. And am I failing to quote unquote be organized, or am I failing to manage my, tasks on my social media? Also ensure that you're not just simply trying to do too many things. If you have too many accounts or too many social media, let's say platforms that you're on, and you're like, I feel like I'm always behind because I can't respond to all the messages and comments. I don't know how really big influencing people do this, because I only, I have, 20,000 followers on Instagram. And even that's for me, that's a lot to manage and stay on top of. And sorry, this is now becoming about like kind of me, but point being that like, make sure that you are not, the first thing was pivoting and being flexible with your strategy over time. And then also, is there a way to, like, if you think about it as like organizing a home, if you have too many things for the physical space of your house, you just need to cut some of them out. And like on social media, if you're trying to do too many different things, you're trying to like make a new video every day and make 500 friends like every minute, that's too many things.
And again, and what is the goal? Is the goal for outreach? Is the goal to connect with people? How are you achieving that goal? Something else we have talked about in group that fits with this right now is this idea of trying to fit the tool instead of the tool fit you. Instead of you using it, like you trying to be like, I think the example we used was like I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you've never done that before in your life. Like, why do you think that would be the strategy that works for you? Are you a morning person? Does this even make sense for you to try, But it's like one of those things or are you almost like looking for a way to self-sabotage yourself so that you can prove to yourself that, no, see, I tried and it doesn't work. And it's like, but did you really? Because I feel like you didn't put the good faith of the try. This is like 7th grade Miss Aguilar coming on. Did you really though? Come on, be honest with yourself here,
Yeah.
Like did you go into this knowing that this probably wouldn't be the best strategy for you, probably wouldn't be the best tool for you, or did you actually think this might work for me? This is one that actually could be doable,
Yeah. And I think another thing that you brought up before we started recording, I thought you used a phrase that I think is so helpful, whether we're talking about social media or quote unquote, in-person real life interactions, is comparisonitis. So what is comparisonitis and why is it important to think about especially for people who are using chronic social media to connect with other people with chronic illness.
Well, yeah, and especially with this kind of stuff, right? Where you're just like, well, so and so said that I should just disconnect and unplug, and they're able to do it, and I can't. And no, and so no. So like the common phrase that you hear is a comparison is the thief of joy, and for me personally, that always made sense in terms of not comparing myself to other people because it's like, well, yeah, we're living completely different lives with completely different experiences, like I why would I expect us to have similar it feels apples and oranges to me. And so for me in the past, comparing with my past self was the motivational thing, right? Oh, look, past me wasn't able to do this even a little bit, but look at present me, look at my trajectory. I'm growing, and when your progress tends to be linear and that kind of thing, it's motivational. But I often will come across things like, be grateful for what you're going through now because one time once this was what you wished for or whatever, and I'm like, I promise you this is not what I this chronic illness life is difficult, and if I had a say in it, like it would look very different than what it is now. But so like for a while the thief of joy was even just comparing with my past self, right? I used to be able to do this. I know what, from like an aging point of view, I think that people will relate to this as well in terms of, oh yeah, I used to be able to like twerk down to the floor and like to the windows, to the walls and all that stuff, and now I can't. Yeah, we're definitely, we have that similarity and we can relate on that level, but it's also just, it's a whole different boat that you're in when the reason for your changes is not something that you signed up for. It's not like a decision that you made, it's not. You just made a beautiful reel about this, actually. It's not your fault, right? Like us getting sick is not our fault. Like, even though for me, I'm like, oh, I know that song because that one for me stems from an illusion of control, where I'm like, well, if I'm the one that broke it, then I should be able to fix it, right? That's how it works. But it's no, unfortunately, sometimes bad things just happen. It's not that, because that's the other cliche you hear a lot, right? Everything happens for a reason, and I'm trying to find the reason, and the one that I've heard instead is like, turn your pain into purpose. I'm trying to turn my pain into purpose, but that doesn't mean that there's a reason for my pain. You get me? Like,
Exactly. And just because there was a reason for something to happen doesn't mean that you had any control over stopping that thing from happening. There are risk factors for cancer. You can do everything that you can to not fall into those risk factors that are under your control. Unlike genetic predisposition, you can not smoke and you can, work out, whatever, but people still are going to get cancer. The sooner you can accept that the better. And I think that's one thing, reason that, again, talking about social media can be a tool for good or for evil, and we're trying to use it for good, but that in a way it can remind you, it's a vehicle for people to remind each other of that perspective. And the thing that I just saw a video yesterday, I have to send this to you. You and I have the love language of sending each other memes and interesting videos. And I just saw a great one. It was a wheelchair user, and I'm going to try to quote it, but I will put a link to it. And I know I saved it, so I'll find a link to it. It was an Instagram reel. And this guy is I have to just explain. So quad if you're a wheelchair user, quad means all four of your limbs are involved, quote unquote, in some way, or usually not always, it means that your legs are totally, you can't move your legs, but you can move maybe some of your arms, or you can't move your arms at all. Para means you're paralyzed just usually at the waist, and you can't move your legs or feel your legs, but you can move your arms and feel your arms. Because you see people with, adaptive sports like basketball, wheelchair basketball, where they're like, whoa, they're moving their core, they're moving their trunk, they're moving their everything except their legs aren't moving. So what the guy says, he goes, quads wish they were paras. People with all four limbs involved just wish they only had two limbs involved. Paras wish they could walk. Walkers wish they could run. Runners wish they could be bodybuilders, and bodybuilders wish they could be God. And it's like, where does this stop, right? Everyone just wants the one, or I think he said, bodybuilders wish they could be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger wishes he could be God. It's like, be careful, right? It's like the person with RA And me, gastroparesis and RA. I wishes I just had RA and not gastroparesis. The person was, you have to everyone wants a little bit better than what they have. And that's that's the flip side of the coin of the human, what we call like human nature, that we always want more, which is why we've been able to evolve and do wonderful things over time. But the flip side of that is that we have a hard time being settled and satisfied with what we have. So,
Yeah, because on one side of the coin, right, you think to yourself, like, well, it gives me the motivation, right? It gives me ambition. It gives me something to shoot for, like that kind of thing. But this goes into the question that we've been talking about, where I'm like, it's important. Part of being mindful about things is checking in with yourself, right? Being mindful is like, how does this make me feel? How am I like, and oh my gosh, as a chronic illness person with ankylosing spondylitis, like I'm constantly checking in on the physical part of me, right? Like, how does my back feel? Should I sit down for this task? Is there a way I can accommodate or be flexible about this? Do I have to get it all done in one sitting, or can I get it, and just constantly checking in that way for the physical aspects of things, but also for the mental part of it, right? Checking in terms of, is this helpful to me or is this harmful to me? Is it effective in helping me reach whatever goal it is that I'm actually after right now, right? So if the comparison that you're doing is in order to motivate yourself, in order to achieve a goal, and it's not to put yourself down, it's not harmful, it's actually helpful in that way, well, then more power to you, especially for like competitive people. Comparison actually really works, right? Like it's a motivating factor, But that's also part of the whole knowing yourself and knowing, is this motivating or is this self-sabotage? Is this actually something that's helping you, or is this actually making you feel worse and giving you more reason to put yourself down and say, I can't do this, right? Instead of figuring out a way that you can, because maybe you can do it with help, or maybe you can do it with accommodations or with modifications, or maybe you can do it if you spread out the task over a long period of time, as opposed to expecting yourself to do it all in one go, right? Like just different ways to be flexible. But those come from checking in with yourself first and saying, like, how is this helpful to me? And that actually reminds me of what you were saying earlier in terms of being organized and who do you surround yourself with. In Spanish, we tend to say, which is, tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are, kind of a thing. And so when it came to social media, that was something that was happening, was I was realizing like how much especially when the pandemic first hit and the lockdown and everything. Well, actually, when it first happened, it was what you and I were reminiscing about at the beginning of this chat, where like everyone and their mama was quite literally online. And there were just so many options of things to do online. We could play games, we could do dance parties. There were just so many different ways to connect virtually, right? Because we could not connect in person, and we needed, wow, did I finally understand the difference between social and emotional health? Because in my head, those two used to be grouped before, and it was social, emotional health. And now it's no. I definitely understand the difference between social health, which involves socializing and being in community and being with people, as opposed to emotional health, which is your inner world from Rheum To Thrive, right? And doesn't have to necessarily involve anybody else but yourself,
But they co-influence each other.
Yeah.
If you're more hypersocial like I am.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
And like I was thinking about that. If you're more extroverted, then potentially, or maybe it's my personality, not just extroversion, but my attunement to others and my desire to feel harmony in all my social relationships, then those social relationships are really important for my emotional health. Whereas for other people that maybe value feeling more independent, and I'm not going to be affected by the people because I'm my own island. And that's, again, I was jealous of people like that, because I'm like, I wish,
and that's the thing. I'm like, if that works for you, if that's helpful for you, if the idea of being your own island gives you relief, gives you like energy, gives you like empowerment, sweet. You know yourself, you figured that out for yourself, and you now know how to keep your peace and how to hopefully maintain your boundaries, and how important it is to tell people no, because being alone is very important for you. But on the flip side, for extroverts like you and me, because I constantly will say I'm an extrovert forced into an introvert's life, feels extremely
Yeah.
isolating to be by
Yeah.
myself.
Oh,
And then
sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's social media for me is like one of my outlets, like one of my ways, my windows into the real world. And so to hear once again people say, but social media isn't real life, I'm like, damn. So the one little thing that I had, you're now dismissing and saying that that actually doesn't count because the way that you want me to count, I can't count as anymore. Speaking of ableism, right? Like it's a very ableist point of view to assume that everyone can access one thing in the exact same way. And it's no, actually, there is a diversity of needs, and that's the importance of inclusion, right? So, like for instance, for me, speaking of I wish, because that's what you said, I wish I could be right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish I could be on the side of the people who were celebrating like being forced back into movie theaters after COVID and who like only find medicine commercials annoying instead of activating. Like I have to mute them or fast forward because I cannot listen to medical commercials, especially when they start listing all the side effects. I'm like, ah, stop it. You know,
Mhm.
and it's like I am obviously living a very different experience than other people. So back to comparison, like it makes no sense for me to compare myself to people who are living a very different life to me. And so coupling that with the organization and back full circle to what I was saying at the beginning anyway, is that that's when I decided to organize myself and actually create a public profile. So I
Yeah.
actually have
Social
two
media.
Instagram profiles. I have a private profile and a public profile. And part of the reason why was because, yes, now the online space and the social media world and everything was where I was now meeting people as opposed to people that I already knew in real life and then being like, oh, let me follow you, like that kind of thing. It's like now
Mhm.
it's like people that I'm meeting through Zoom. Oh, we're going to exchange Instagram handles or whatever. And I was like, how embarrassing, like my private profile, like I will be crying on there sometimes. You know, like I talk about like hard things. Like I'm expressing myself through my private profile. And I didn't feel comfortable giving that to people that I was just meeting.
Right.
It
Right.
was different when it was like fellow chronic illness people who would understand. But honestly, when I post things sometimes, like normies or the muggles or non-disabled people will freak out and be like, "Oh my God, her life is so tragic. How sad." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, I'm here trying to make a joke out of this because
Yeah.
if you don't laugh, you're gonna cry, you know, or whatever they
Like
say.
I'm excuse me while I use my while I use gallows humor.
Exactly, exactly. And it's so it's one thing when I do that with people like my fellow Room to Thrive people with people who are in the know, that whole if you know, you know kind of thing,
Mhm.
right?
If you get it, you get it. Once you get it, you
Yes.
get it.
And so, and that was such a big difference too, was like friending so many more chronically ill people through my private profile, where I was expressing myself and like my journey and the ups and downs of navigating chronic illness, and now having people like having an audience that I was expressing myself to that understood, right? That would write back messages like, I know exactly what you mean, or like that kind of thing, as opposed to people who didn't reply whatsoever, or who would say things like, you know, toxic positive type things or just stay positive and, blah, 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 and I just need to express my reality, and I realize that my reality seems very negative to you, and so now I sound like I'm being negative, but honestly it's either this or be silent and repression and everything, and I'm not going to do that. So instead what I did was create a public profile, so that my public profile was the one that I was friends with everybody and their mama. My public profile is the one that I give to people when I first meet them, to be like, oh, okay, this is the more curated one. This is the one that's more mindful. And I think a little bit harder about what I'm posting. I also will do the accessibility image descriptions. And like, I will basically spend more time and be more mindful about the things that I post via my public profile than I do on my private profile. My private profile is like a journal where I express myself, and I'm so blessed to feel the solidarity from other people. My public profile is where I want to spread awareness and support and small businesses, and you know, talk about news that I think is really important and affects me. And I noticed that really, really helped with my mental health, because sometimes I'd be like, you know what, I cannot with the real world, I cannot with people going out to concerts when I'm like freaking out that I might die from COVID, and the comparison is the thief of joy. These are the last things, the last images I need to be seeing, this is not,
Right.
it's not nothing against you. Like, you live your life, you take the risks that you're going to take. I realize that people wanted to go back to normal, and now that's the rush that we're in, but just because that's what everybody else wanted doesn't mean that that's what works for me. Once again, is this helpful or harmful? And it's very harmful to me to try to ignore myself and make myself uncomfortable for the sake of other people's comfort, because they're traumatized by seeing me in a mask, as opposed to like my trauma of being immunosuppressed on immunosuppressants during a global pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, anyway, so when that happens, and I'm like, this is too much. I can't with the normies. I can't with that world that I no longer fit into. I go into my private profile, and I just stay in my private profile where I am friends with fellow chronically ill people, and we have very similar realities. And I know I'm most likely not going to be activated by someone's post on there,
Or gaslit, or
Yes, or
yeah.
you have all that toxic positivity like come at you, because sometimes that happens and you're just like, I wasn't expecting this. I just wanted to feel connected to people. And now the opposite has happened. And now I feel extremely isolated in my tragic reality, instead of feeling connected and to the solidarity of other people, which is actually another thing as to
Mm.
why I'm so grateful for a Room to Thrive Discord group.
Yes, let's talk about
Yeah.
Discord as an alternative to social media.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because when we talk about social media, so many people think about Facebook and Instagram, and we did have a Facebook group for a minute,
Mhm.
but so many people were like, I'm not on either one of those things, but I still want to be connected to everybody, and I still want to, laugh at we were just talking about sharing
The
memes and
memes.
stuff like, yeah,
Yeah.
so I still want to be connected in that. So having our Discord group where we're able to be in community and virtually connect, as I keep saying, that should be the goal, that should be the purpose of a mindful social media use, right, is to connect virtually with people. And I love that we do that via our Discord, and I love that because we are all chronically ill people, nobody has the expectations for an immediate response or anything like that, like it's just, we all understand that it's going to happen when it happens, and none of us are taking it personally. None of us are saying like, oh, they didn't want to respond to me and that's why. It's no, I understand that life just happens and you're dealing with it.
Well, and I just want to mention one of the reasons I moved. So the Room to Thrive, the 4-month long program, typically 4 months, sometimes with holidays it's 5 months, where we have their initial cohorts and then the Thrive graduates, which is the ongoing year round, great for people who've done the initial group. I used to have a Facebook group for each one, and I started midway through 2025 saying, no, people aren't on Facebook anymore. There's a lot of concerns about privacy as well. So Discord is basically like a private online, you know, they say it's a dedicated online space akin to a virtual clubhouse where groups of people with shared interests can communicate and interact through text, voice, and video channels. And so it's still private to the people you can still make it private, just like there's a quote unquote private Facebook group. It's just a lot of, yeah, it's been a lot. It's also a lot easier to organize, like as almost like a discussion board, because we have the Thrive outline of the different topics where we can say, okay, here's something I learned about this week, like tools for pain, tools for fatigue, or relationships and social life. Let's vent about this. Or, here's a badge I acquired today, my chronic illness badge. I, explained my condition and I felt validated by the person that I talked to about it, like that kind of thing. So Discord, there's also Discords that are like open to general populations. There's one for Taylor Swift fans, and ask me how I know about that one. But and so that's a great alternative that you can feel more like there's a really specific purpose to it. There's no, at least in my experience on it, there's not like a scrolling. Like the thing that gets me kind of addicted sometimes, quote unquote, or like this thing where I think that 5 minutes has passed and it's actually been like 15 minutes or something, or 20 minutes, where you're just kind of like just getting this weird, like mindless scrolling. And one little tip that I've done, in addition from switching to Discord, I also have tried checking out social media only a couple times in the day and doing it from a desktop computer. Because when I'm on a computer, my mind is like, I'm focused versus I'm on my phone. I'm like kind of halfway focused. I'm all over the place. So that's another thing that's been helpful when I remember to do it. Old habits die hard. So that's the other thing. It can be hard to know, or it's going to be hard to be consistent, but we have to say, okay, self-compassion, do the best you can with the tools that you have,
Yeah, and you check in with yourself about what worked about that, what didn't work about that, Oh, putting a timer while I scrolled actually worked. As soon as the timer went off, it helped me realize I was wasting time on that and I needed to get back on task. Something I do for myself is I will write down, I literally have a note that says hopes for today/this week. And I will write down what I'm hoping to get done. What are my goals, basically? And so if my goal, right, like I'll be like, oh, that's right, I want to answer so-and-so's message. I haven't done that yet. And I will write that down, like answer so-and-so's message. And so the next time that I'm like checking in with myself, what do I need to do? And I see answer so-and-so's message, go to my phone. If I get distracted, start the mindless scrolling. No, what was I doing? And then I have a answer so-and-so's message. Oh, that's right. There are ways to get things done, and it's not going to be the same one that works every single time. And it's not going to be, like I said, foolproof and guaranteed. But the point is, like, making it work for you, right? Like, you're not trying to fit yourself into the tool. You're making that tool work for you. And if that tool, it works so great before, and for some reason right now it's just not doing it, not being hard on yourself for that, that just happens sometimes, like, and sometimes just it reminds me a little bit of people's eating habits and stuff, and it's especially with us with our like restrictions and stuff where it's, I know I'm not supposed to be having this, but every once in a while, I'll risk it, and I'm in a good mental space to risk it, like I check my calendar and I'm like, well, I don't have any appointments coming up. So if I get sick, it's not the end of the world. I have the time to be rotting in bed if I need to. I'm going to risk it on the ice cream. I'm going to take the food. And I feel like it's kind of the same with social media sometimes where I'm like, all right, well, I don't have a purpose, but I don't really feel like doing anything. And I am going to mindlessly scroll. But even then, as I'm saying that, I'm like, I have literally set up a bookmark of things that I want to watch so that when I have that itch of, oh, I feel like mindlessly scrolling, I still curated something for myself. And so I will go to that bookmark and just mindlessly scroll through the stuff that I already pre-approved for myself. A lot of this came from me getting very activated and like triggered by things, and just being like, oh, like opening up someone's story and seeing them making fun of someone for taking precautions for COVID, and it's a loved one who tells me that they love me, but they're making fun of someone, and I'm just like, whoa, 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 this is a lot. This is not what I was expecting, and trying to figure out, okay, how can I make this work for me? Because one option could be, just get off social media, right? Just delete the app. There's ethical issues anyway, that kind of thing. But like I said, then I'm like, okay, but I feel very lonely because like my friends are there, like I like how many people actually still genuinely text each other at all, I literally just sent my cousin a text this morning and I was like, I think I'm gonna get back to handwriting you letters like we used to when we were kids because I want to just check in with you, but I don't want you to feel the pressure or overwhelmed that, oh no, I have to answer her message. When I'm like, no, that's not at all what it is. I just want to connect, and I don't want the connecting to be stressful. And I don't want the connecting to be something that's harmful for you or me, especially when so many of my friends and family members have you little kids, where I'm like, yeah, that little kid is taking your priority and all your attention. And of course, I'm not going to hear back from you right away. And nor do I expect to,
That's so true. That's so funny you said that about snail mail because I've been trying to do that too. Like, I've been trying to be better about having certain hours of the day that are like screen activities, like whether it's computer or phone, and then really trying to use the evenings to be not to say we can't use any screen. And it's how is it being used as a tool? Like watching a movie as a family, watching a TV show as a family is different, right, than just being in our little silos on our, again, the selected algorithms. But I've been trying to think, what were some of my hobbies in those quote unquote old days, when I discovered that old iPod, like when I used to only do two things on my phone. It's like, oh yeah, I like to make little presents for my friends. I like to send them cards. I like to, of course, swing dancing for me has always been like a hobby that for the last 20 years. And that's been fun getting back into that, figuring out, if you're trying to reduce the quality versus the quantity of the screen time. Sometimes the issue is a little both, it's too much and that the quality of your interactions on there is not serving the purpose that you want it to do. And so, but other times it's just, okay, can I find a replacement hobby or activity if you're like, it's the volume, it's just too much. I'm spending too much time on it in a mindless way, finding a different thing to do, or just knowing for me, like having like office hours for certain kinds of tasks that structure gives me a sense of ease. And I like having that. Other people might, like you said, it's whether it's helpful for you. Other people might feel boxed in and they want to be able to use it when they want. So
Exactly. It's like, how does your brain work, and what makes the most sense for you, and what makes sense for you is not necessarily going to make sense for me, just because, oh, I found a way that really works for me. So now I want to tell everybody, and it's okay. Well, that might help some people, but other people that might not work for them at all. And that's not to say that they're not trying. That's just means it doesn't work for them, and they'll hopefully find a strategy and a tool that does,
Right. Well, I'm mindful also about time, but this is just such an important conversation. And, you mentioned getting triggered on social media. And I think that is such a common experience when you're using it in a way where you're sharing your story and part of your story is your chronic illness. It's like, every time, what is it? Every time a child laughs, an angel gets its wings or something. What is that thing? From It's a Wonderful
Oh,
Life.
it's from, every time a bell rings.
Oh, a bell rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like every time someone says they have rheumatoid arthritis, someone comes out of the woodwork online and is, have you
tried yoga?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, is it social media or is it just how humans are, right? Because that same interaction probably would still feel bad if you were in person, but it seems that the volume and frequency that happens is a lot higher on social media. What would you say? Again, you were just saying it all is so individualized, but if I want to share more about my chronic illness, but I'm finding it triggering at times to talk about, do you have any general other tidbits of advice?
Yes. I'm like, it's all about, like I said, the first part is checking in with yourself, right? What am I doing this for? Is this helpful? Is this harmful? What goal do I have? If it's connecting, how am I connecting, etc. But the second part from there is, okay, now I have to enforce my own boundaries about it. If this is the tool I've decided to use, like we said, the timer or whatever, okay, so enforce your own boundaries about it. And that's something that only you can do for yourself. No one else can do it for you, you know?
Yeah.
So then it's okay. I noticed that, I noticed that whenever I post about this particular subject, the responses, the replies tend to get me a little triggered. So my option might be to just not post about it at all. But now I'm not expressing myself, and actually this is more harmful to myself. I really don't want to repress this. I really want to give this oxygen and sunlight, and really just, and especially again for me, the thought that always keeps me posting is, even if there's just one other person that can feel less alone because of this, who's, oh my gosh, you get it too. Oh, I felt the same way. Like that for me, that's it. Just that one. So I'm like, okay, so what can I do to make it work for me? So one option that I'm thinking to myself is, I might turn off comments. I might say, this is just the video that I'm putting up. And I might even write in the captions, no comments are necessary. I really just wanted to get this off my chest, kind of thing. Or I might even be very specific about the kind of comments I want, right? So maybe not turn off the comments, but say, only looking for comments of a solidarity nature. Please keep unsolicited advice to yourself, like that kind of thing. And then the second someone crosses a boundary, delete that comment, right? I don't even need to read it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to reply. I already said what it was going to be like. I don't feel the guilt of trying to appease this person or, basically, yeah, like appease their comfort at the expense of my own. Like that just does not make sense. It does not compute for me. So I'm like, yeah, that is my advice, is that you communicate your boundaries and you enforce your own boundaries. Don't expect other people to respect your boundaries just because you put it out there, right? Like
Right.
that would be nice. That would be great. In the ideal world, right? That's exactly how it would happen. But no, the point is I have my boundary. And if someone crosses it, if someone violates it, someone pushes up against it, then that is when I get to choose to enforce that boundary. And that enforcement is going to look however it makes sense. I have blocked people. I have muted people. Social media for me is my world, right? Especially my private profile. That is
Yeah.
me. I mute people's stories as much. I will even be like, I love you, muted. Like it's
Yeah.
not personal. It's not about you. It's about me. And like this is kind of like the other side of that echo chamber algorithm that we were talking about. But it's like I'm making it work for me actually, because in my private profile, like I said, that's where I follow the majority of spoonies and stuff. So that's the kind of content that I get to see more than anything.
Right. And that is different than like a corporate entity whose main goal, right, is keeping your eyeballs on the app for as long as possible so that you will eventually click some sort of advertisement and make them more money. That is different than you as an individual human with your own human brain saying, I'm going to help curate this so it works for me and choose mindfully who I follow, who I don't, who I interact with, who I don't. I mean, people have said so many times, like, social media can bring out the best and the worst of human nature, the internet in general. It's not just social media. I think it's especially people who have anonymously, the anonymity of it, the thrill people seem to feel at times in, saying something negative or riling someone up. And I was joking with my parent the other day, but it's, wow, I actually did find like a cure for being a people pleaser, which is being on social media, because you really
You
realize
can't please everyone. Yeah.
you really can't. And if the only thing that would please everyone is like to please everyone, say nothing. It's, to avoid criticism. I'll find who said this, but there's a great quote that I had to repeat to myself a lot, especially when I was first on social media and being public about my thoughts. And even it was, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
and even then, someone will criticize you for saying nothing.
yeah. And well, it's also like this kind of perennial, for me, debate of would you rather be right or happy? Yeah, I really want to be happy, but depending on the situation, I often kind of would rather be right when it comes to, I think the things that I've had to have guardrails for myself around are like the endless kind of back and forth about whether there are some individuals who, do like a natural, like it's the medication of it all.
Yeah.
And also the kind of, I actually think that the comments that are the most heartbreaking for me to get are actually when I post a video with the best of intentions and I feel worse after seeing your video. And I've come to realize that it is just, we're humans that are going to have our feelings, and that's not right or wrong. If I want to post a video of myself swing dancing, and because my body right now is at a state where I'm able to swing dance and it brings me joy, and someone else who has rheumatoid arthritis is upset by that video because they feel their perception, and their perception is based on some reality, that some people will look at that video and say, this is a real situation where they're like, I'm worried people will look at that video and think, well, RA isn't that serious because people like you are able to like dance with it, which is like, there's so many like incorrect assumptions on that. But that's true that some people, and one person even says, my husband looked at your video and said, I can't believe she has RA. She's moving so well. But it's like, you're not seeing the systemic impact. You don't know that I have erosions on my joints. You don't know that I have OA in addition to RA. You don't know how this has affected my every aspect of my life, from like fertility to like job choices to marriage. You're just seeing me dancing. But so I think that, but on the other hand, it's like, it's been a life lesson for me. It's like sad for me to be like, I don't ever want to, my goal in life is to like help other people and make them feel as empowered as possible, and obviously not make anyone feel quote unquote bad, but there's just no way to take effective action and share my story authentically that's gonna be beyond any reproach, that's gonna just please everyone. It's just not gonna happen.
And that goes back to the whole everybody is different. Like even the same diagnosis, we have different bodies and things will be different. Where it's just, again, what worked for you, it does not guarantee that it's gonna work for me, kind of a thing. And it's, I guess, instead of saying comparison is the thief of joy, sometimes it's even like my joy is not the thief of your joy. Just because
I
this
love
doesn't
that.
take away from yours, right? And if anything, I kind of wish that you could find joy in the fact that, hey, this could be an option. This could be a possibility. Like you might find a medication that works so well for yourself. There, you are able to go back to one of your old hobbies. And how fantastic would that be? Like I would not, what's that word? I would not resent someone, or I would not like want to take that away from anybody, because I really want that too. Like I would love to be able to go back to one of my old thing. I was not even that physically active. I'm not a swing dancer, soccer player. Exactly.
I want to run a marathon now that I can't. Dang it. I was going to run a marathon. I promise.
Yeah, I just want the ability. I'm like a cat. I just want the door to be open. I want the option of it.
Yes. Yes. So true. Well, and also, I think this is really making me think deeply. I think you and I both talked a lot about this idea of the very, very subtle ableism in the phrases of things like, overcoming your rheumatoid arthritis or ankylosing spondylitis, or having a normal life. But so on the one hand, I've always said I try to educate doctors and providers on there's a little bit of complication in saying things like you can live a normal life with it, because I know what you mean. The subtext of that is that you can do the things that you hoped and wanted for your life before this came into your life. But it also reinforces that a normal life is only one that doesn't have an impact of your illness, which even if your joints are in remission, your disease is in remission, it's going to impact your life.
Yeah. I remember my first rheumatologist told me, or was it my gastroenterologist? One of my first specialists straight out told me, but I don't want this diagnosis to ruin your life. But I was like, oh, okay.
I wasn't really imagining it would, but now that you say it will, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was an option here. I'm living life as best as I can. Like I'm just dealing with it. I didn't realize that ruining was a possibility. Even that I need to fear.
No, or they'll say things like, "Don't worry, not nearly as many people are." Have extreme deformities that require, wheelchair assistance as they used to. And you're like, oh, well, I didn't even know what.
Yeah. Or what was it? Like a few months ago, I finally invested in it's not a wheelchair, it's a companion chair, because it's not the kind where I can push myself or roll myself, I guess. It's the kind where I need someone to be pushing me. But the point is, I finally have one. I used to always rent one whenever I went to places like Disneyland or things like that, was going to be a lot of walking. So yeah, so I finally got one, very excited for it. And yes, I'm very excited. And again, this is probably a very good example. Very excited for it on the private profile. Everyone's excited for me. Everyone is like applauding and so happy for me and blah, blah, blah. But then you have sometimes even doctors be like, oh, don't give up and use a wheelchair. And I am not giving up by using a wheelchair. And the fact that that is the mentality that you have speaks volumes to me about the internalized ableism that's in there, because I had to deal with that a lot too, right? And thinking to myself that just because I'm finally investing in mobility aids like canes, like I have a cane with a seat, I have that companion chair now, like I got a walker, so many different things, was not me giving up or like giving into this disease. And, but it was me accepting and saying, hey, my quality of life could actually be a hell of a lot better if I accept the fact that these tools, beyond being necessary for me, actually make things very possible for me. Like the reason I got that chair was because we went to Vegas, and there's no way I would have been able to do all that walking that was necessary for Vegas. But because I had that companion chair, we were able to do the entire strip, and not even have to take breaks because I was seated the whole time, And for me, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm celebrating But like seen through the eyes of ableism, it's, oh, how sad and how tragic.
Then, yeah, I think, it's if you think of an analogy of glasses, they don't say, oh, she had to resort to wearing glasses.
Oh, so sad that
It's
she
so
wears glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that the thing that makes it complicated in rheumatology is that there is this elusive idea that's hanging over every patient, which is that we can get them into remission, and they
Mhm.
can live a unencumbered life where I like to say, if I didn't have rheumatoid arthritis, my life would be easier. If everything else in my life was the same except rheumatoid arthritis, like I don't. And it's funny because I've literally been in the middle of making this point in past interviews where I'm the interviewee, kind of. I mean, and the people are like, no, but your life is. I'm like, no, I'm trying to make the point that they're like, no, but your life wouldn't be easier because I'm like, no, if there is a thought experiment where my life is exactly the same as right now, I'm married to the same person, have the same house, and all you change is I don't have rheumatoid arthritis. That is just, we don't need to overthink, but we also don't need to underthink. Like, this would be easier.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need to deal with insurance. I wouldn't need to deal with vacations. I wouldn't need to think about all the time. What am I going to do to manage my, to conserve my energy, manage my energy? Can I tolerate going to this or that? Like with regards to some of my side effects of like being out in the sun.
The number of appointments you have to go to.
Yeah.
Imagine having all that time back.
Meaning that I don't recognize that my life would be easier if I didn't have rheumatoid arthritis, but I wouldn't say that necessarily it would be intrinsically better.
No.
Because that's the ableism of saying it's better to not have it.
I just want to point out something though.
Yeah.
Out of everything that you just mentioned, not one of them was actually the physical symptoms of RA. And it's true because like everything else, that's why I say I'm a professional patient, because I'm like, the things that are required of a chronically ill life to manage it, just going to doctor's appointments, getting your medications, getting your lab work, like all of that. That's not even to say then the physical symptoms of it, the fatigue. How much easier would it be if we weren't dealing with fatigue, with nausea, with chronic pain, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking like if the magic wand was pulled up and then like they took away the physical. I mean, I think this is just a poignant point for people to I hope if your early diagnosis might be a little confusing because you might be like, but I kind of do want the disease to get remission. But what we don't want to do is focus on that so myopically that we forget that there are possibilities of living a good life with it. And
exactly.
if it's disease in remission, you still have the admin. You still have
and also like thinking to yourself that is the only goal, knowing that no, there are different possibilities. That is one possibility, right? Forcing yourself to fit into that goal, right? Instead of looking at your life, being present in it and accepting where you currently are, not closing yourself off to that, saying, hey, maybe one day that will happen. Maybe it will be medicated remission. Maybe I'll achieve unmedicated remission. Like I don't know what new, speaking of technology, right? I don't know what new technological advances there might be. I mean, I was a lot more optimistic for all the research and but we won't get into that. But like in the future, maybe hopefully when we get back to all the research and everything, my parents and I are big believers in clinical trials. Not only is that helping with learning stuff that we need to know about ourselves and our bodies and how they work and everything. I love the fact that they track you so much more diligently than my experiences have been in doctor's offices where you only get like 15 minutes with your doctor and then a follow-up every 3 or 6 months or whatever. It's no, now I have to check in with my clinical trial specialist person who is asking me TMI, but is asking me like what kind of bowel movements I was having, It's like the level of tracking, is like, that kind of thing.
You're like, all right.
Yeah, and so like hearing that my dad's trial might be canceled because of lack of funding and stuff like that, it's this is painful. But the point is that who knows, because of all these trials, because of all the technological advances, because of everything, who knows what possibilities are going to be there for us in these diseases, like I always have my fingers crossed for a cure, but I'm not holding my breath for it, and I'm not holding my life, and I'm not like waiting for that time to begin on this. Kind of, again, full circle what we were just talking about, where it's, okay, you're going to find one tool and it's going to work, and it's just going to be the one that you use and you get to use forever. No,
Right.
that's not how it happens. And I'm not going to wait until a possible cure that's in the horizon at some point, and I'm just going to hold off life until that happens. No, that doesn't make sense either. Like, I need to
Yeah.
be accepting of and be present of my life right now with the goals and the hopes of a different future, right?
Yeah.
But that's taken me a long time and a lot of therapy to get to.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And just, I'm not going to go through all the rapid fire questions to start wrapping it up. But I mean, I think that's a beautiful message to share with a newly diagnosed patient. Is there anything else you would just specifically want to share to somebody listening who might be newly diagnosed? It's okay if there's not, because we covered so much.
I know. I was trying to remember what I had said in the last one, because I
Yeah.
remember that you asked about mantras and stuff, and I'm like, did I say this one? My one moment at a time, because you normally hear one day at a time, but for me, a day, those 24 hours are way too long. So
When you're
for
in
me,
pain,
it's like
24 hours is a long time.
it's a long time. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, one moment, and I get to define that moment however I need to. So if that moment is the next 3 deep breaths, then one moment at a time. And if the next moment is just one deep breath, that's the moment I need to live through. I need to survive, and like that's what I'm going. But one moment at a time, and I get to define the moments as it needs be.
Yeah. I'm looking, and that is,
That the one I used? Yes, because I
luckily
love
have
that one.
transcripts for those of you listening that,
Yeah.
that don't look at the website, arthritis.theenthusiasticlife.com.
Well, in that case, I will stick with the other theme of our episode for today and just say that remember that everybody's different, as in every body is different. And just because you have similar circumstances or even the exact same diagnosis as someone else, in no way guarantees that you're going to have the same experience with that disease as someone else.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
That's so true. That's so true. And then this is kind of the central thesis or question of the Arthritis Life podcast, which is, what does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with your autoimmune arthritis / disease?
again, bringing it back to what we were just saying, it means that I'm not waiting for my life to begin. It means that I am actually present in what's happening and trying to find joy. Because that was another thing that I was like, what is the difference between enjoying something and trying to find joy in something? And it's, you're not always going to be able to enjoy something. I was like, I am struggling to enjoy my current moment. Like, this fucking sucks. How am I supposed to enjoy it? But to find joy in it, right? It's, but you know what? I am cat sitting and I have a little kitty that's purring next to me. And that is the joy that I have found. I'm not enjoying the moment, but I have found joy in this moment. And yeah, I think those are the big things I would say.
I love that. And it's just, I can hear the English teacher in you, that you even if you're not in joy.
Word choice. It's all about word choice.
But it almost broke my heart once. I did have, but it was a good learning experience for me. I usually have, as an icebreaker, when the very first meeting of our new Rheum To Thrive cohorts, people share where they live and their relationship to chronic illness, in the sense of, what illness they have, whenever they want to share about that. And then something that brings them joy, just in general, usually your pet or a book or a movie. And there was one cohort where someone was like, I'm having a hard time thinking this today about what brings me joy, which is just, that is a valid and hard place, to be. But I do think it's a good practice to always see if we can find a small pocket of joy, even in the hardest times, or maybe downgrade from joy. Maybe make it maybe joy is too aspirational at the moment because your life is, it's just too rough right now. Maybe think a small moment of peace, or a moment of happiness, or a moment of, something.
What's something that's easier for you to accept at this moment? I have clean sheets. Thankful for the clean sheets I am in right now.
Although your body might not feel safe if it's really flared up, so, but I love the answer that you're not waiting for my life to begin. I just love that. So I wrote that down and I highlighted it.
Well, that's something that came to me because of this group, man. Because again, like my big struggle at the beginning with my therapist was like, when do I fight? When do I, just accept things or give in or give up? Like even just figuring out the difference in those terminologies was really difficult for me. And the experience of being in Rheum To Thrive and being around so many people that were not forcing themselves to enjoy the moment, right? And we're just being real and with that realness, like being unapologetic, even if it is negative, and then realizing how many of us like don't feel that way, where it's just, no, that's not negative. That's just what you're dealing with. And oh my God, it sucks. And I'm sorry that that's what you're dealing with. And just like having those moments are so healing to be able to I've mentioned this before, and I think I definitely said it in that 5-year episode where it's like being able to have concrete people that I think of, not a hypothetical. Would I say this to someone going through the same thing as me? But instead of, would I say this to Cheryl, the founder of my support group? And most of the time the answer is no, not in a million years. Why would I be telling
for self-compassion, if you're saying something self-critical.
Or where it's just like, why are you being so negative? Would I tell that to you if you were like telling me about something hard that you're going through in your life? No, I would not. Like,
no. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, you mentioned your public profile. Can you share what that handle is?
Yes, it is my first name, which is Gittel, Gittel _ and then my nickname, which is GT. And I'm fine with either one. People can call me Gittel or GT. It's up to you.
Well, this has been so great. I knew we said at the beginning where it was going to fly by. And I know we both did our self-care. Like you took a nap before recording, which thank you.
And we also postponed this.
And we postponed it 2 times.
Twice, yeah. Because we were making this work for us. We were not forcing ourselves to work at this. Because trust me, if we had done this the first time, this would not be what would this energy, this being able to articulate myself would not have been possible. Last week when you weren't able to, I was in denial that I was normal people sick, but I was getting sick and the symptoms were hitting me hard. And so I ended up napping most of that day anyway. So again, this would not have been what it would have been 2 people who were forcing themselves to be part of that interview because we had already postponed once, and why would we postpone again instead of just being realistic about it and saying, yeah, we need to postpone once more. And now we had a fantastic conversation.
Yay for using our strategies. No, it is really hard. I have a hard time rescheduling things because I just, feel guilty or whatnot. But thank you so much. And for those of you listening, make sure you check out the YouTube video version of this conversation if you want to see us talking in real time. And there's also the detailed show notes on the website. So thank you all again, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you, GT. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Rheum To Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.